recording has started. Are y'all able to see my presentation? Well, welcome to the Principal of the Year and Supervisor of the Year Part 2 application webinar. It's our best for all. Right, the Tennessee Principal of the Year program recognizes and honors outstanding school leaders across Tennessee. We applaud principals who demonstrate superior abilities in managing and motivating students and faculties, evoking high standards, demonstrating a commitment to excellence, implementing innovative programs, and having a track record of exceptional gains in student learning. The Tennessee Supervisor of the Year program recognizes and honors outstanding district leaders across Tennessee. We applaud supervisors across all disciplines who demonstrate superior abilities in managing and motivating students and staff, evoking high standards, demonstrating a commitment to excellence, implementing innovative programs, and having a track record of exceptional gains in student learning. In this webinar, we will provide an overview of the Tennessee Principal of the Year and Supervisor of the Year Part 2 application and best practices. Our learning objectives today are to following completion of this training, learners will be able to identify the components of the Tennessee Principal and Supervisor of the Year Part 2 applications and identify best practices for approaching each component. Our session norms, please remain on mute throughout the session until asked to unmute and share. If you have any questions or comments throughout the presentation, please put them in the chat. And if you could just let us know in the chat to get started, what is one thing you hope to gain from this training session?
Micah, the slides are not advancing. I think you might be sharing your preview screen instead of your active screen.
Okay, hold on. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. Is it
Perfect. Thank you.
Is it flipping now? Perfect.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
All right, if you are selected as a region level semifinalist, the program coordinator will provide the Part 2 application to you via email. Our principals of the year have been notified. Our supervisors of the year should be notified by next week. We're still waiting on a couple of applications to be scored. Part 2 of the applications must be submitted by June 1st. So the Part 2 of the application contains 2 written response questions, 1 video response, and a professional resume, 2 letters of recommendation, a professional biography, a headshot, a completed signature page from your director of schools, and an optional opportunity to submit up to 5 pages of supporting documentation. The scoring part, the Part 2 application will be scored by a statewide scoring committee who will identify 1 finalist in each region of the state for a total of 9 region level finalists for each program. All applicants will be notified of their application decision by July 2nd of 2023. All right, so let's dive in a little bit more deeply into Part 2 application components. There are 5 main components of the Part 2 application. The first section is the basic information. It, it is not scored, and it includes demographic information, information about your professional background, and school and/or district information. Please note, demographic information will not be shared with the review committee, and the Tennessee Principal and Supervisor of the Year will be selected without regard to race, color, religion, sex, age, or national origin, and will not be discriminated against on the basis of disability. This information is primarily collected for program monitoring and evaluation purposes. It must only be completed if there has been any change to this information since submitting the Part 1 application. In the second section, response questions includes 2 written responses that are limited to 500 words each. We will explore the questions more deeply on the following slide. In the third section is 1 video response limited to 2 minutes total. We will also explore this component more deeply in the later in the presentation. The fourth section is additional documentation. This section includes optional supporting documentation, the professional resume, 2 letters of recommendation, and your professional biography. We will also explore each of these materials more in depth later in the webinar. And last, the final selection is non-scored components. This section includes a professional headshot and a signature page from your director of schools. These 2 items are not shared with the selection committee and are only used for administrative purposes. The headshot will be used in department marketing materials and shared with the media if requested. The signature page confirms that your director is aware and approves of your intent to apply for the Tennessee Principal or Supervisor of the Year program. All right, let's get a little more deep into the components. Let's look closely at our response questions. On the Part 2 application, applicants will respond to 2 response questions. Each one has a 500-word limit. For Principal of the Year, applicants will respond to the following prompts. The following questions pertain to the Tennessee Instructional Leadership Standards, sometimes referred to as TILS. Which of the Tennessee Instructional Leadership Standards is your strength? How do you utilize this strength to ensure success? And the second question is, which of the Tennessee Instructional Leadership Standards is an area of opportunity for your growth? How do you plan to improve within this area? And again, both of those responses are limited to 500 words. For Supervisor of the Year applicants, you will respond to these following prompts. Describe a project or initiative you have been involved in which contributed to the improvement of your district. What was your role? How did you collaborate with others? And what is the status of this project today? Include evidence of impact in your response. Effective leaders continually reflect on their performance and seek feedback to improve their practice. As a leader in your district, describe how you reflect on your performance and seek feedback to improve your practice. What is an area of opportunity that you have identified for your professional growth? And how do you plan to improve within this area? And again, both questions are limited to 500 words. And response questions addressing common missteps. The Tennessee Principal of the Year Guidebook for applicants and the Tennessee Supervisor of the Year Guidebook for applicants include guidance and exemplars to help you craft your Part 2 application. including this checklist of questions to help you address common missteps. Though a strong response may look different for each written response prompt, these guiding questions can help you ensure that the components of your application complement one another and give the most comprehensive view of your excellence as a leader. So some of the questions that you need to answer are: take the time to unpack the question and think about what it is asking. For example, in question 1, describe a project or initiative you helped create which contributed to the improvement of overall school culture. What was your role and what is the status of this project today? Please include evidence of student impact in your response. The first part of the Supervisor of the Year question says, describe a project or initiative you helped create which contributed to the improvement of overall school culture. Think about a major project or initiative that you have helped create and tell the story of that project and how it impacts students and the school culture. I encourage you to ask someone else to read your responses and ask if they can determine the question being addressed. Make sure you're answering all parts of the question. Use the unpacking strategy from the guidebook to ensure that you plan for and address all parts of the prompt in sufficient detail. Make sure that you're giving a comprehensive picture of yourself as a leader throughout all of your responses. Try avoid using the same example or idea in your response to each question. Your goal is to give a complete picture. Make sure that you're writing to show, not tell. Use examples and stories of things that students, parents, or colleagues have said or done. Show how your work influenced the learning and growth of others through examples and evidence. Highlight your accomplishments rather than being humble about them.
I'm
And
going
also
to
it
jump
helps if you
in.
write, I'm sorry.
Mike, I want to jump in for just a second on
Sure.
that. I think that is something that educators struggle with, is making sure that they are highlighting accomplishments and not like holding back or giving credit to others, because that's who we are. But this is your time to shine. It is your time to really say, these are the things that I've done that have helped my teachers, my leaders, my students succeed. So don't shortchange yourself in your application. Thank you, Micah.
And something that kind of helps is if you just kind of write down all of your ideas and write through it. And then you can kind of narrow it down after you get all of your thoughts out. And you can strategically edit it to reach your word count. Do we have any questions at this point in time about the response questions? Anything in the
Y'all
chat?
feel free to come off mute. There's nothing in chat, but there's only a handful of us. So if you have a question, don't hesitate to come off mute and share your thinking.
Feel free to interrupt me if there's something that you really need to know. All right, we'll keep going. All right, our next section is the video response question. So on the part 2 of the application, applicants will respond to one video response question with a 2-minute time limit. The questions are the same, but how you answer will differ across the programs based on the applicant's role. For both Principal and Supervisor of the Year, applicants will respond to the following prompt addressing education and trends. It is essential that leaders be knowledgeable of current state and national issues. So, what do you see as a major education issue today? And identify an issue that you consider to be the highest priority or most important for your school. Share with us. Sorry, my slide popped on me. Share with us any ideas or strategies that you have for both bringing attention to the issue and how you plan to address it. Okay, so our video best practices. To best approach the video, I'd like to go through a quick checklist of questions to help you address common missteps and the following best practices. So you can utilize this checklist of questions. Um, are you answering the question? Are you answering all parts of the question? Are you giving a comprehensive picture of yourself as a leader through all of your responses? Are you telling a story to show what leadership and learning looks like in your school district? Ensure that reviewers have viewing access throughout the review period. So if you create a link to your video, make sure that we can access it, that there's not a time limit on it. Oh, I don't know why my slide keeps moving on without me. I wonder if it's got a timer on it. So I apologize. If you upload to YouTube, Google Drive, Dropbox, or similar file sharing website, make sure that you set your privacy settings and allow everyone to be able to view who has the link. Some of the videos cannot be opened if you do not allow permissions for everyone to be able to access that. So like we have a SharePoint in with the department, but if I share outside of the department, nobody can see that. So make sure you use a public platform. Do not delete or move your video until you have received, it did it to me again, sorry. Until you have received your notification from the program coordinator that scoring has been completed. Maximize the quality of your audio. Make sure that it's clear audio. That's critical for a great video. If possible, be sure to record in a quiet room. Use earbuds with a microphone. If you're not able to use external microphone or earbuds, stay within 1 to 1.5 feet of your microphone or recording device. And a big thing is to follow all school and district level media policies. If you choose to include photos or videos of students, please make sure that you follow your school and district level media policies. As best practice, all students featured and I'm so sorry. I don't know why it's keep moving on without me. As best practice, all students featured in your videos should have a media release on file. Do we have any questions about the video part? All right, we'll move right along then. All right, let's look at the third component, the additional component. This section includes the professional resume, 2 letters of recommendation, your professional biography, and optional supporting documentation. So the professional resume for the Principal and Supervisor of the Year application requires a different perspective than tailoring a resume when seeking a new job opportunity. The primary goal of the resume is to provide information about how your previous experiences have positioned you as a strong candidate for Principal or Supervisor of the Year. With this goal in mind, you should think strategically about which of your experiences and further what aspects of your experiences align with the Principal and Supervisor of the Year criteria, and your resume should highlight these experiences. At a minimum, the professional resume includes the following requirement of, why does it do that? Anybody have a suggestion? I don't know why it's.
Micah, I had the same experience when I did the other webinar, and I don't have a good answer for you either. There may be a timer on them that we haven't realized is on there by accident. Sorry about that, folks.
I'm so sorry. So a minimum, it should have your education. So list any degrees that you have earned or you're currently pursuing. Any professional experience. You should list your most recent jobs and associated responsibilities, and be sure to note significant accomplishments in each role, as well as key features of each position. Your professional leadership. In this section, you should list any professional leadership positions you have held. Professional leadership may include district level responsibilities, such as leading professional development, or region level responsibilities, such as serving on your area's principal study council. Also include community leadership and involvement. In this section, you should list any leadership positions you have held, or community organizations you have been involved with. This might include nonprofits, faith-based organizations, or service organizations. You can include awards and recognitions. So list any recognition you have received for your work as an educator. This may include district level principal or supervisor of the year, community awards, recognitions, published articles, presentations, or featured news items. Applicants should also consider the following best practices when completing the resume. Because your contact information is included elsewhere in the application, you can save space by leaving out your address and contact information on the resume. Please do not include your personal contact information on those resumes. Similarly, since the process includes letters of recommendation, you can also save space by leaving out any references on your resume. Emphasize skills and experiences related to the principal and supervisor of the year criteria. Write your responsibilities using the action plus results format and begin, actions plus results format, and begin with an action verb to describe the type of work you did. For example, led school improvement team to analyze and accelerate student learning, which resulted in a 15% increase in student proficiency on the 10 Ready. Be sure to define all acronyms. For example, school representatives for the Tennessee Education Association. Proofread carefully to ensure your resume has no spelling, grammar, or formatting errors. Any questions about your resume? Okay. Moving right along. Letters of recommendation. These are a critical external perspective of your excellence from colleagues, supervisors, parents, students, community members, and such. Applicants should think strategically about who will provide the most compelling and clear evidence that the applicant demonstrates the qualities of principal or supervisor of the year awardee. So in general,
before we
okay.
continue, we do have a question about the resume. And the question is there a recommended length of the resume?
I don't believe there is a recommended length.
Traditionally, a page for every 10 years is traditional, but what I can tell you is that a 7-page CV will probably not be absorbed as well as a 2-page resume. Scores are human, and that would be my experience. That being concise in those spaces is more useful than being lengthy.
I don't believe we set a perimeter about actual length. Supporting documents, I know that we cut down to 5 pages, but I don't think resumes are cut down. Make sure that your letter of recommendation is only 1 page in length, so those do have a limit. that they are typed, not handwritten, and that they are saved as a PDF. Those letters of recommendation should include evidence of the applicant's strength in one or more of the principal or supervisor of the year criteria. Applicants may submit handwritten, translated, or transcribed letters. Sorry, I apologize for the alarms going off. You can submit handwritten, translated, or transcribed letters if the letter is from a student, parent, or adult caregiver. Transcribed or translated letters must include the name and signature of the transcriber or translator and may not be transcribed or translated by the applicant. Okay, our best practices. Applicants should also consider the following best practices when completing the letters of recommendation. It is recommended that applicants share the principal and supervisor of the year criteria with those who will be writing the letters of recommendations, as well as identify several key criteria for each letter writer to focus on. Reviewers will pay special attention on how their applicants' accomplishments have impacted student success. In the letters of recommendation, student success can be documented either anecdotally or with statistical evidence. A mix of both makes for a stronger application. Student success, sorry again, folks. Student success can be documented either anecdotally or with statistical evidence. And again, a mix of both can make a stronger application. So those examples can be increased academic achievement, decreased disciplinary referrals, increased enrollment in challenging curriculum, increased participation in enrichment activities, increased student confidence and self-esteem, increased time spent in service to the community. To reduce the impact of implicit bias on our awards and recognition programs, we may redact identifying information from the letters of recommendation before the selection committee begins their review. To support this effort, we encourage applicants and recommenders to use words and phrases like our school or our community or a colleague, etc., instead of naming particular places or individuals. Any questions on the letters of recommendation?
I do. I have questions.
Okay.
So can you go back to that last slide, please, with the when you're saying use the word our school, our community, or our colleague, if it's a one of our supervisors, um, just still use those generic terms as much as possible.
Yes, it helps with not creating a bias if somebody knows somebody or has had interactions with people. We're not redacting that information, so it won't be taken out if you do use it. It just kind of helps with
Okay.
keeping an open mind of general concepts versus
But
specific
but when
people.
they do submit the letter, they can say this, I am writing this letter to recommend and then put our names there.
Yes, your
Okay,
name will
perfect.
not be
Okay,
redacted.
thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to the professional biography. It's used by the Tennessee Department of Education when responding to requests for information about the finalists, as well as in public releases and promotional materials. The professional biography should articulate your influences for entering the teaching profession and your greatest contributions and accomplishments as an educator. The professional biography must not exceed 250 words and must be written in the third person. So when writing the professional biography, consider the following questions. Why did I seek a career in education? What experiences led me to the place where I am today? What is my teaching philosophy? What degrees do I hold? What are my greatest contributions to the teaching profession? And what are significant accomplishments I have made in the teaching profession? And what awards or recognition have I received? Do we have any questions about the biography? All right. Moving on to our optional supporting documentation. It is completely optional, but permitted to provide additional evidence for references made in your extended responses. Some examples of supporting documentation include student success data, project plans, parent or community communication materials, etc. So make sure that all of your supporting documentation adheres to your school or district's privacy policies and media releases. So make sure if you include children or students or teachers that you do have media permission to release those. Please do not include any student names with data, etc.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
Should those documents, or does it matter if they're the same as we submitted before? Or should they be different?
You will have a different person scoring it. And so it will be a different person from part 1 to part 2. So they wouldn't have seen that before. So you can submit the same. Just make sure that you are showing kind of a well-rounded information and example.
Great, thank you.
And they are truly optional. So if you elect to use the same ones, elect to add some new ones, elect to not add, they are truly optional parts of the application.
They're there to support your evidence and your answers that you've given, maybe in the written response or the video response. It is important to note that the application, including supporting documentation, will be redacted for identifying information to reduce potential unconscious bias. It's best to ensure your supporting documentation is still easily understood without logos, names, or specific addresses. So I would leave out home addresses. I would leave out your Twitter handle, things like that I would leave out. Supporting documentation is completely optional, and choosing not to submit supporting documentation will not penalize the applicant in any way. It is a limit of 5 pages maximum for this Part 2 application. Okay. Best practices. Please consider these best practices when compiling supporting documentation. Directly connect supporting documentation to the written responses, but do not rely on the supporting documentation to make your case. So supporting documentation should not be a substitute for high quality explanation in the narrative, nor stand alone as extraneous information. Effective supporting documentation should extend a reviewer's understanding of your written responses by directly connecting to aspects of the narrative where additional evidence, such as a student data, may make your writing clearer. Also, ensure each page of the supporting documentation demonstrates the principal and supervisor of the year criteria. In some cases, you may identify that the written response prompts do not permit you to share characteristics of your leadership or specific experiences that fully demonstrate your ability to serve as principal or supervisor of the year. Like the best practice above, effective supporting documentation can serve to expand your reviewers' understanding of your ability to meet the principal and supervisor of the year criteria. To ensure reviewers understand what they are viewing and why it is important, be sure to provide notes with relevant information and context for any materials not directly addressed in the narrative. Any questions about supporting documents? We'll move on to scoring. So you may be wondering how exactly the Part 2 application will be scored. Each written response question will be scored individually and will be addressed according to the degree to which the response adheres to standard grammar, spelling, and punctuation, answers the questions clearly and concisely, and provides a compelling narrative that speaks to the applicant's ability to serve as the teacher as the principal or supervisor of the year. The video response question will be addressed according to the degree to which the response has the desirable qualities of delivery, is made according to instructions, and topic and time limit. Candidate displays qualities of confidence, optimism, and sincerity, and message is well organized, easy to follow, and understand and relevant. The additional documentation will be evaluated holistically to assess the degree to which the applicant meets the Tennessee Principal or Supervisor of the Year criteria. Then the entire application will be given a holistic score, including both the written response questions and the video response questions, as well as the additional documentation if it is included in the application. The holistic score will be assigned based on the degree to which the applicant demonstrates the Tennessee Principal of the Year and Tennessee Supervisor of the Year criteria. Each application will be reviewed by 2 to 3 reviewers from across the state, and the top score in each region will be selected as a region level finalist. All finalists will be notified of their application decision by June 30th, and instructions for the interview will be shared with region level finalists at that time. Any questions about the scoring process? Okay. When you receive this PowerPoint, here are some additional resources: your Principal of the Year and your Supervisor of the Year resources. Weekly office hours will be held on Wednesday from 3 to 4 p.m. Central Standard Time from January 26th to May 25th. We have that on here, but I don't believe that we have set that up yet. Sarah had made note of that, but I will have to check to see if we have office hours set up for that to happen. But if you have any questions, feel free to contact myself, micah.fager@tn.gov, or Martha Moore at martha.moore@tn.gov if you have any questions. Okay, that's all I have. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute, let us know. I appreciate you all coming today. I know we were a small bunch, but I appreciate you being here. I'm going to go ahead and stop my recording and stop sharing.
And if I am not mistaken, you all have been a part of Micah's